I'm making a very niche incremental clicker autobattler game inspired by Candybox's gameplay and Vermis' visuals, where you have to mine, fight, and solve puzzles to make your way out of a creepy dungeon. The problem is, I have no idea what I'm doing. The only game dev experience I have is making really bad games in Game Maker Studio when I was 12. So, not exactly super applicable when creating fully fledged games that you would be able to ship on Steam. But wait, let's go back in time to understand how we got here. I had been toying with picking up a game engine for a while now, downloading Unity here, following a tutorial here and there, giving up on it because I didn't know what I was doing, forgetting about game dev for a year or two, seeing all the fancy new stuff Unreal Engine was doing, trying it out, giving up on it, rinse and repeat. That is until I found out about Godot.
Godot is the blender of game engines.
Godot is the biggest free and open source game engine.
Godot.
Moving to Godot.
Godot.
Seeing all the hype about Godot made me really interested in trying it out. Looking at learning resources, I found GDQuest, which offered a course on Godot 4. Cool. Let me buy it and do the courses, and I stopped doing it after a few lessons. Lack of motivation. That's until I was watching a video from Super Eyepatch Wolf called The Bizarre World of Fake Video Games and saw this.
Vermis is simple. It is an official guide for a game that doesn't exist.
Vermis. I thought to myself, it would be so cool if there was a real game inspired by that kind of retro, hand-drawn, deader look. What if I made something like that? What kind of game could it be? I'm a big fan of idle games. Why not make something like that? I remembered playing Candybox 1 and 2 a few years ago and loved the mix of exploration, battle, and incremental gameplay, and thought that I could make something in a similar style. There it was, a concrete idea. So, here's the gameplay loop idea. You collect materials, you upgrade your gear, you fight in the dungeon, rinse and repeat. And parallel to this, the deeper you get in the dungeon, the more tools you get to solve puzzles and explore the corners of this weird place. Okay, let's do it. First, I put up a tree, I made a button that lets you click it, and an XP bar that showed you how much XP you had. Okay, this works, but it doesn't exactly look good. So let's add some initial tree art and add some buttons to automate your wood gain. Already looking much better. Of course, it wouldn't be a game without a menu. So I added a simple menu with basic settings. I was streaming some initial dev work on Twitch, and my friend tetrogem came in and was like, "Why are you handling material creation like that?" "Oh yeah? I'd like to see you take a stab at it."
So now that it's a class, you can just share all the behavior between each material instead of rewriting it each time.
Oh, wow, that works great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, with this new system I coded entirely myself. I could now handle materials much more easily. I want to let the players navigate different areas of the games with a map. So I created a little map menu that lets you click on different points of interest, and already this is starting to feel much better to navigate. Okay, we can collect materials now, but we need to be able to fight enemies. It's time to work on combat. So I made it so the levels count up and have them spawn a random enemy. Then I added actual fighting mechanics where the player would take and give damage to enemies. By this point, I got tired of waiting before adding polish, so I took the time to add a gradient map and dithering shader to the game to make it look like what the game should look like. Fighting a screenshot of a monster is great and all, but I need some actual monsters to fight. I found monster drawings online on itch that were free to use from WatcherDM and so I put those in my game and gave them different stats, and wow, the fighting system is now starting to look like something. And then it was time to do the unimaginable. I created art for the character. I know, I had to let the cats go. I also created art for the base camp environment, and now I had messages I needed to show the player, but I had no system in place to do so. So that's why I created a toast notification system to let the players know important messages. By this time, I had an issue. If I wanted to create new upgrade buttons for material automation, I would have had to code everything by hand one by one. And that's not really ideal. So I finally worked on an upgrade system that creates buttons for all the potential upgrades in code. And I coded it all by myself, no help at all. What's better than one material? 3 materials. I want the player to be able to collect different resources, and so I created a tab system for the materials to let players switch through the different materials. At this point, combat was feeling a little bare, so I worked on a log system that shows you a log of what happens during your run. This game is looking great and all, but it's not exactly practical not being able to save. So a God O'Near's tutorial later, and we have save files working. I have an issue though. Modifying lines of code in the editor to test out different features is starting to become annoying, and it might become problematic to keep track of what needs to be reset back to normal values later, and that might cause issues down the line. This is why I made a cheat menu, and now I can easily give myself a bajillion resources to test the game with. Combat is great and all, but it's missing stats that you can upgrade. I added a system to the player script and made a bare bones store system that lets you upgrade your equipment, and now you can easily delve deeper in the dungeon. Uh-oh. Do you hear that? That's my 4090 dying. It's having a real hard time running the combat while fighting enemies at 1 milliseconds between each attack. We gotta fix this. So how my combat works is I have the code read from the disk across the folder with all my enemy nodes, and then it picks one and spawns it on the scene. Then reads its info and populates the UI. The issue with this is that it's a very slow process and not very effective. I fixed it by creating an enemy class with info for each enemy. And now, when spawning an enemy, it simply takes an enemy from that class and populates the UI with the correct info. No more reading from disk every millisecond. And would you look at that? Back to max FPS. Nice. Okay, so we have a good initial gameplay loop, but we're missing what every good incremental game has: a prestige system. Ah yes, the classic, resetting the game with boosts to go further than you made it before. So I made a prestige system and hooked everything up, and nice, it works. By this point, I was pretty much ready to have people test out the game to see if the balance was okay and to get thoughts on the game. I went to the incremental games subreddit and posted asking for playtesters, and I got a good 10 to 20 people join in and give some thoughts, which was great. Over the next month, I updated the game a lot. I fixed a ton of bugs and added a lot of new features and quality of life stuff. Here's the short version. I added localization to the game. I changed how combat worked, making it so that you can loop a certain floor but that you could no longer exit mid-fight. Instead, you have to decide, do I want to take the risk of going to the next floor, or do I want to exit after the boss? I added a lot of new art, namely of the different material levels, god, prestige skills, equipment store, stairs, and more that I'm not showing quite yet. I made the right UI panel pretty and not just a bunch of text. I added health potions to the shop, letting you heal a percentage of your health in combat. I added a lot of much needed juice to combat, adding animations and particles to make it feel nicer. I created an inventory system. I added a bunch of new enemies to combat to spice it up a bit. I added music, and finally reworked the main menu and added a proper settings menu as well. I'm really happy with how much I progressed with the game in such a short amount of time. While working on the game, I also worked on its branding and on a store page. And after all this, I also worked on a game trailer for the game, and as of April 14th, Horripilant is now available to be wishlisted on Steam. If you're into the idea of the game, it would help tremendously if you wishlisted it. I have to also take a moment to thank my friend tetrogem. Without him, I wouldn't have had the knowledge nor skill to develop half of these complicated systems. He's the guy behind Pulsus, a 3x3 grid-based rhythm game that's similar to Jubeat, so if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely go check it out. So now, who's typing in the Discord, which you should join right now? Ah, dang it.